Deep in the heart of the Alaskan wilderness, where the mountains touch the sky and the rivers carve through ancient forests, a mother bear was about to experience something extraordinary. She had given birth before, many times, but this time, something was different. Lying beside her, nestled against her warm fur, was a cub unlike any she had ever seen. Its fur was pale, almost golden, a stark contrast to the deep brown coats of her other cubs. It was rare, special, a phenomenon almost unheard of in the wild. But what happened next? No one could have predicted it. This is a story of love, survival, and an unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. A story that will challenge everything you think you know about nature and leave you breathless. But before we begin, if you love stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss an incredible story like this one. Now, get ready because this is a story you'll never forget. The crisp, icy air of early spring whispered through the towering pines, signaling the end of another brutal Alaskan winter. Deep within a secluded den, hidden beneath the roots of a fallen tree, a mother bear lay still, her breathing slow and rhythmic. She was exhausted. Hours had passed since her first cub had been born, a healthy little brown ball of fur squirming against her belly for warmth. Then came the second, strong, vibrant, just like its sibling. But then the third cub arrived, and for the first time in her life, the mother bear hesitated. The newborn cub lay in the dim light of the den, smaller than the others, weaker. But it wasn't its size that made the mother pause. It was its color. Its fur was golden, almost cream-colored, something she had never seen before. In the world of brown bears, this was rare, almost impossible. The mother nudged the golden cub gently, waiting for it to move. For a terrifying moment, it didn't. Its tiny body was still, its breathing shallow. Then a small, fragile sound, a tiny whimper. The mother bear exhaled deeply, pulling the cub closer with her massive paws. It was alive. But in the wild, being different meant being vulnerable. And in this brutal world, vulnerability could be fatal. Instinct told her to focus on the strong ones, to nurture the cubs most likely to survive. She glanced at the golden cub again. Small, different, weak. But something inside her, something stronger than instinct, refused to let go. This was her cub, and no matter what, she would protect it. What it took. The golden cub nestled into the warmth of its mother's fur, its tiny body trembling as it tried to nurse. The other two cubs, stronger, larger, were already feeding, their tiny paws pressing against their mother's belly as they instinctively fought for nourishment. But the golden cub was struggling. Its small frame couldn't compete with its siblings, who instinctively nudged it aside in their eagerness to feed. For a moment, the mother bear hesitated. She had seen this before. In the wild, the weak rarely survived. Nature was cruel that way. But then she moved. With a careful nudge of her massive paw, she shifted her body slightly, giving the golden cub a better chance to nurse. It was a simple gesture, but in the animal kingdom, it was a powerful statement. She had made her choice. For the next few days, the mother bear kept the golden cub close to her chest, shielding it from the cold draft that sometimes swept through the den. While its siblings grew stronger and more energetic, the golden cub remained small, fragile, but it fought. Even as it was pushed aside, it kept trying again and again, and its mother saw. Every time it whimpered, she nudged it back into place. Every time it was too weak to fight for food, she made room. It was as if she knew that this cub needed her more than the others, and she would not abandon it. Days passed. The warmth of spring began to seep into the forest, melting the last patches of snow. Soon, the mother bear knew it would be time to leave the den. But the outside world was dangerous. And deep in the forest, something was watching. A large male bear. Margaret, a seasoned ranger who had monitored these lands for years, had warned her team about him. A rogue, a threat, and he was too close. But the mother bear didn't know that yet. All she knew was that soon she would have to take her cubs into the world, and she wasn't sure if her golden cub was strong enough to survive it. But she had made a promise, and she wasn't breaking it now. The golden light of morning filtered through the towering pines as the mother bear stepped forward, her massive paws sinking into the damp earth. She could feel the change in the air. Winter had finally loosened its grip, and the forest was beginning to wake. Birds chirped in the distance, their melodies welcoming spring, while the melting snow fed into gushing rivers and winding streams. But for her and her cubs, this wasn't just another morning. It was the of a fight for survival. The mother bear paused at the den's entrance, scanning the world beyond. She had been here before. She knew the dangers that lurked outside. The cubs, however, had never seen the open world. For months, their entire existence had been the safety of the dark, warm den. But that was over now. She turned her massive head, watching as her cubs hesitated at the threshold. The two larger cubs were the first to step forward, curious but cautious, sniffing the air and pressing their tiny paws into the wet earth. The golden cub, however, remained still. It stared at the light, blinking, its small body trembling, not from cold, but from uncertainty. For the first time, it was experiencing something new. The mother bear let out a deep, gentle huff, encouraging her smallest cub. It took a shaky step forward, then another, and finally, it stepped into the world. Their journey began. The mother bear led her cubs through the dense undergrowth, moving at a slow, deliberate pace. She stopped often, sniffing the air, ears twitching at every sound. She was looking for signs of danger. There were things out here that could kill her cubs in seconds. Wolves, wolverines, even other bears. The cubs followed closely behind, staying near their mother's massive frame. Every step was a lesson. The larger cubs picked up on things quickly. They mimicked their mother's movements, stopping when she stopped, pressing low to the ground when she did. But the golden cub struggled. It lagged behind, its small legs working twice as hard to keep up with its siblings. And every time it stumbled, it looked up, not at its mother, but at the world around it. While the other cubs were focused on learning how to survive, the golden cub was simply trying to understand. It wasn't just moving through the forest, it was observing it. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, warming the earth beneath their paws. The mother bear led her cubs down a slope toward the sound of rushing water. She knew this river well. It was shallow this time of year, a perfect place to drink and teach her cubs about the water. As they approached, the two larger cubs rushed forward, their instincts telling them what to do. They lapped at the water, tiny tongues flicking at the surface. But the golden cub hesitated. It stared at the water, mesmerized. It had never seen anything like it. It moved. It shimmered. It reflected the world above. For a cub that had spent its entire existence in darkness, the river was something magical. And then it took a step forward. Its paw landed on a slick rock, and in an instant it slipped. A tiny squeal of panic filled the air as the cub fell into the current. The mother bear's head snapped up. Her muscles coiled as she rushed forward, crashing into the river without hesitation. The golden cub was flailing, tiny paws desperately trying to grip onto something. The river wasn't deep, but for a cub this small, even the gentlest current could be deadly. In one swift, precise movement, the mother bear snatched her cub up in her jaws, lifting it from the water. She carried it back to shore, placing it down gently. The golden cub coughed and sputtered, shaking violently. Its siblings watched from a distance, eyes wide. This was his first true test of survival. The mother bear stood over her smallest cub, her dark eyes locked onto its shivering frame. In the wild, weakness meant death. If this cub couldn't survive the simplest challenges, it wouldn't last long. For a moment, she simply watched, waiting. Would it give up? Would it curl up and refuse to move? Or would it try again? The golden cub trembled, its tiny body still soaked, but it didn't lie down. It stood up. It took another step forward, back toward the water. The mother bear exhaled softly. This cub was different, not because of its color, but because of its spirit, and she would protect it no matter what. As the sun began to set, the mother bear led her cubs to a secluded clearing where they could rest for the night. The larger cubs settled immediately, curling up beside their mother's thick fur. The golden cub sat a little further away, its small head tilted upward, watching the stars appear between the tree branches. It wasn't just learning how to survive, it was trying to understand the world itself. But what the cubs didn't know, what the mother bear couldn't sense yet, was that they weren't alone. In the dense shadows of the forest, a large male bear stood, his dark form blending into the trees. He had been following them, waiting. And as the mother bear finally closed her eyes, allowing herself a moment of rest, the male bear took a step closer. The golden cub, still awake, lifted its head. Something was coming, and tomorrow their true fight for survival would begin. The world had darkened, the last light of day swallowed by the thick, towering trees. The forest had turned into a world of shadows where every rustling leaf, every distant howl, and every unseen movement could mean life or death. The mother bear curled her massive body around her cubs, shielding them from the biting night. Air. The two larger cubs had already settled into sleep, their tiny bodies rising and falling with soft, rhythmic breaths. But the golden cub was still awake. Its small, bright eyes glowed in the moonlight, staring into the deep abyss of the woods. It had never seen the night sky before, the way the stars flickered, the way the moon bathed everything in a silver hue. It was mesmerizing. It was beautiful. But beauty is dangerous in the wild, because while the golden cub was lost in the wonder of the night, it had not yet learned to fear it, and something was watching. Not far from where the mother bear and her cubs lay sleeping, a predator moved. The male grizzly, larger and more powerful than the mother, had been following them for hours, patient, quiet, waiting for the perfect moment. His massive paws moved silently across the damp earth, his eyes locked on to the vulnerable cubs. He wasn't interested in the mother. He wasn't interested in food. He was interested in eliminating the cubs, because if the cubs were gone, the mother would soon be ready to mate again. And that was the brutal law of the wild. No mercy, no hesitation, just survival. The golden cub twitched its ears, sensing something in the air, a shift, a presence. It wasn't afraid, not yet, but it was curious, and curiosity can be deadly. The male bear inched forward, his breath heavy, his eyes locked on the smallest of the cubs, his muscles tensed. One more step. Then a sound. A low, guttural growl rumbled through the darkness. The mother bear's eyes snapped open. She smelled him before she saw him. A stranger, a threat, a killer. In a single motion, she rose to her full height, her powerful frame blocking her cubs. The golden cub jerked backward, finally realizing the danger. The mother bear let out a warning roar, her deep, savage growl cutting through the silence. She had fought before. She had faced wolves, bitter winters, hunger. But this was a different kind of battle, a battle for her children, and she would not back down. The male grizzly charged. The mother met him head-on, rearing up on her hind legs, her powerful paws swinging through the air. The first strike landed. A deep gash opened across the male's shoulder, but he didn't stop. He lunged forward, his teeth snapping inches from the mother's throat. The cubs screamed, huddling together in terror, except for one. The golden cub wasn't running, it was watching. Something clicked inside its small mind. For the first time, it understood. This wasn't just about learning how to walk or drink a river. This was about survival. This was about fighting for life. The male bear was bigger, stronger, faster, but the golden cub had already learned something that the others hadn't. Sometimes survival wasn't about being the strongest. Sometimes survival was about being the smartest, and it had an idea. The golden cub glanced around. It had spent the last few days watching everything, learning. It knew something the others didn't. Just behind them, the earth sloped downward into a small ravine, a place where the river's banks were steep and treacherous, a place where even a giant bear could fall. The golden cub turned to its siblings, nudging them urgently. It let out a small, quick whimper, a sound that meant, "Follow me." The two larger cubs hesitated, but their instincts told them to trust their sibling, and so they ran. The golden cub led them straight for the edge of the ravine. The mother bear, still locked in battle, saw the move, and suddenly she understood. She roared again, this time not in warning, but in strategy. She struck at the male bear again, baiting him, leading him backward toward the drop. The male didn't see it. All he saw was his prize slipping away. He lunged after them just as the ground beneath him disappeared. The male bear let out a furious roar as he tumbled forward, his massive body sliding down the ravine. The mother bear barely had time to react. She ran to the edge, panting, bleeding, but victorious. She watched as the male grizzly struggled at the bottom of the ravine, growling in frustration. He was hurt but not dead, and he wouldn't be back. He had learned his lesson. The mother bear turned back to her cubs. They were shaking, breathing heavily, their tiny eyes wide with shock. And then she saw the golden cub standing in front of its siblings, the smallest, the weakest, the one that shouldn't have survived. And yet, it was the one that had saved them all. The mother bear limped toward her golden cub, lowering her massive head until her nose touched the top of its tiny skull. A sign of recognition, of respect. This cub was different, but not because of its color, because of its mind. And in the brutal world of the wild, sometimes intelligence was the most powerful weapon of all. The cub had proven itself. And for the first time, the mother saw not just a fragile cub, but a survivor. She huffed softly, nudging her golden cub forward. It was time to keep moving. The world was still dangerous, but tonight they had won. And no matter what came next, they had won. From a small stream nearby, the cubs stayed close, sensing that their mother needed time. The golden cub watched everything. It had learned from the fight. It had learned from the journey. And now it watched over its mother. It was still small, still weaker than its siblings, but it had a new purpose. As the mother bear began to regain her strength, she started teaching her cubs. The forest was a classroom, and the lessons were all about survival. She showed them how to dig for roots, how to strip bark for food, how to track prey. The larger cubs learned quickly. They followed her lead. But the golden cub learned differently. It didn't just follow instructions. It observed. It tested. While its siblings dug for roots, the golden cub tried to find other sources of food. While its mother tracked animal scents, the golden cub watched the birds and listened to the wind. It was thinking. It was learning its own way. And slowly, the mother bear began to notice. One evening, the mother bear led her cubs to a clearing where the ground was torn up from a recent storm. The larger cubs struggled to find food. The loose soil made it hard to dig. But the golden cub had been watching. It had seen the birds pecking at the dirt earlier, and so, instead of digging, it searched where the birds had been. It found grubs, worms, and tiny insects buried just beneath the surface. It ate before its siblings even realized there was food. The mother bear watched. This cub wasn't the strongest, but it was adapting. And in the wild, adaptation was the key to survival. Weeks passed. The cubs grew stronger. One day, the mother bear sensed something in the wind, a scent, prey. She led her cubs to a riverbank where a small herd of caribou had stopped to drink. It was time to hunt. The mother crept forward, silent, precise. The larger cubs stayed behind, too small to help, but the golden cub followed. The mother bear stalked closer, then lunged. The caribou scattered. The golden cub watched as its mother missed her target. The animals were too fast, but instead of giving up, the golden cub looked around. It noticed something the others hadn't. A weaker caribou, limping, struggling to keep up. The golden cub let out a small noise, a signal. The mother bear saw, and this time she went for the weak one. It was a perfect kill. The golden cub had helped its family eat. For the first time, it wasn't just a cub struggling to survive. It was a part of the hunt. That night, the mother bear and her cubs lay beneath the stars. She looked at the golden cub one last time. She had worried about it since the day it was born. She had feared it wouldn't survive. But now she saw the truth. This cub wasn't a mistake of nature. It wasn't a weak link. It was something new, something that had the power to change the way bears survived forever. And as the wind whispered through the trees, the golden cub closed its eyes, knowing that it had finally proven itself. Not with strength, not with speed, but with intelligence. And that was the most powerful survival skill of all. The days stretched into weeks, and the cubs grew stronger, their muscles more defined, their steps more confident. The mother bear had fully recovered from her wounds. The once deep gashes across her shoulders were now scarred reminders of the battle she had survived. She was as strong as ever. Her cubs were thriving. But one of them was different. The golden cub. From the moment it was born, it had been weaker than the others, smaller, slower. But now it had become the most important cub of all. The mother bear had begun to trust the golden cub. While the larger cubs relied on brute strength, the golden cub relied on something far more powerful, its mind. And the mother bear knew it. Instead of pushing it aside, she began following its lead. She noticed how the golden cub watched the birds, how it listened to the wind, how it noticed things before she did. One afternoon, as the family wandered through the woods, the golden cub suddenly stopped. Its ears perked, its nose twitched. The larger cubs kept walking, unaware. But the golden cub turned sharply, looking toward a fallen tree nearby. It let out a small, sharp sound, a warning. The mother bear stopped instantly. She sniffed the air, and then she understood. A wolf was hiding behind the fallen tree. Had they kept walking, they would have walked straight into an ambush. But because of the golden cub, they had avoided danger. The mother bear looked down at her smallest cub. It had saved them again. As summer approached, the cubs faced a new challenge. Food was becoming scarce. The rivers weren't filled with fish yet. The berries had not ripened. For the first time, the cubs felt hunger. The mother bear led them farther than ever before, deeper into the wilderness, searching for a meal. She had always been the one to find food, the one to lead. But this time, the golden cub took charge. It stopped suddenly, lifting its nose into the air. Air. Something smelled different. It wasn't fish. It wasn't berries. It was something better. The golden cub followed the scent, leading its family toward a place the mother had never taken them before. A grove of fallen trees where insects had burrowed deep into the wood. The larger cubs sniffed the logs, confused. This wasn't food. Or was it? The golden cub stepped forward. It scraped at the bark with its tiny claws, and then hundreds of termites and grubs spilled out from inside. The mother bear's eyes widened. It was a feast. Without hesitation, the family dug into the logs, eating the protein-rich insects. It was a meal that would keep them alive, and it was all because of the golden cub. By the time the sun had set, the family had moved toward higher ground. But something was wrong. The air was thick, heavy. The golden cub lifted its head, feeling a strange shift in the wind. Then thunder. A storm was coming. The mother bear sniffed the air, sensing the change. She had survived many storms before, but this one felt different. It was stronger, more dangerous. She had to find shelter fast. She turned, leading her cubs toward the mountains, searching for a cave or a thick patch of forest to shield them from the coming rain. But the golden cub had other ideas. It stopped, turning in the opposite direction. The mother bear growled softly, a warning. But the golden cub didn't back down. It was trying to lead them somewhere else. The larger cubs hesitated, unsure. But the mother, she had learned to trust this cub, so she followed. The golden cub led its family down a narrow hidden path through thick undergrowth until finally they reached a massive boulder. At first, it looked like nothing, just rock. But then the golden cub squeezed through a small opening, and on the other side, a hidden cave, a perfect shelter. The mother bear sniffed the air, dry, safe. She led the other cubs inside just as the rain began to fall. Within minutes, the storm raged outside, the wind howling, the trees bending under its force. Had they stayed on the mountain, they would have been exposed. Had they run into the open forest, they could have been swept away by floods. But because of the golden cub, they were safe. As the rain poured outside, the mother bear looked down at her smallest cub. She saw it now. This cub wasn't weak. It wasn't slow. It wasn't a burden. It was a leader, a new kind of bear. It had survived not by fighting, but by thinking. It had learned what others hadn't. Because of that, it had saved them all. The mother bear let out a soft huff of approval, something she had never done before. The golden cub pressed itself against her fur, feeling something it had longed for since birth, acceptance. And at last, it closed its eyes. For the first time in its life, it wasn't just surviving, it belonged. As the storm raged on, the golden cub dreamed of the battles it had fought, of the things it had learned, and of the future waiting ahead. Because this cub was no ordinary bear, and soon the world would know it too. The storm had passed. Morning sunlight filtered through the trees, illuminating the damp earth with a golden glow. The forest smelled fresh, reborn. The mother bear and her cubs emerged from their shelter, stepping carefully onto the wet ground. The storm had left branches broken, streams swollen, and paths washed away. But they had survived thanks to the golden cub. The mother bear stretched her massive body, shaking the water from her thick fur. Her larger cubs, still sleepy, yawned and stretched, their tiny paws pressing into the damp soil. But the golden cub was already awake. It stood at the edge of the clearing, watching. It had always been the one that observed, listened, and learned, and today was no different. The world had changed overnight, and it needed to adapt it. It watched the birds return to the trees, listened to the sound of the rivers rushing faster than before, smelled the fresh, overturned earth from fallen trees. Everything was different now, and it knew it had to adapt again. The mother bear led her cubs down the valley, carefully avoiding the flooded riverbanks and unstable ground. The golden cub stayed close, but not too close. It was watching everything. Suddenly, movement in the distance. The mother bear stopped. Her cubs froze behind her, ears twitching. A large moose was ahead, its massive antlers glistening with rain. It was an old bull, slow, limping. The mother bear's muscles tense. A hunt was possible. The larger cubs stayed back, still too young, but the golden cub stepped forward, and this time the mother led it. The golden cub tilted its head, studying the moose. It wasn't like its mother. It couldn't take down a giant animal, but it could think. Instead of stalking, instead of chasing, it turned toward the trees and saw the answer. A fallen log balanced on a slippery slope. It turned back to the moose. It was walking directly toward it, if it could. The golden cub let out a high-pitched sound, not a roar, not a growl, but a warning. Its mother understood. She moved not toward the moose, but toward the log. And with one massive push, she sent it tumbling down the slope. The moose panicked, slipping on the wet ground, and that's when she struck. A clean kill, a perfect hunt, and all because of the golden cub. The mother bear stepped back, looking at her cub. For months, she had protected it, feared for it, wondered if it would survive. And now it had led her. The golden cub was no longer just the weakest. It was a leader. It had changed everything. As time passed, the golden cub grew stronger, smarter. Its siblings relied on strength, but it relied on knowledge. And soon, the other bears began to notice. It led not by power, but by wisdom. It taught other cubs what it had learned. It showed them how to avoid danger, how to find food others didn't see, how to survive not just with force, but with intelligence. And the legend was born. In time, rangers spotted a strange bear among the forests of Alaska. A rare golden bear, larger than most, moving with a confidence they had never seen before. It was different. It was a survivor. And it had changed the way bears would live forever. Because sometimes being different isn't a weakness, it's a gift. Sometimes the ones we think are the weakest turn out to be the strongest of all. If this story inspired you, remember, true strength isn't just about power. It's about adaptation, intelligence, and the ability to overcome the impossible. What do you think? Can animals learn in ways we never imagined? Let us know in the comments. And if you love stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so we can bring you more incredible stories of survival, courage, and the unbreakable bond between animals and nature. Subscribe, like, share. Let's spread stories that matter.